So today we're going to be talking about organization, most specifically your classroom organization. And hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to type their response to the would you rathers in the chat box. Students love these I think most students love the would you rathers, and you can find different ones for different age groups. And it's a great way for students to start building conversation. And Andrea, we've got it. I'm gonna please. It's gonna be contagious, and I'll be next. So, thank you guys, everybody, for joining us. Yeah. So the would you rather's, they're fun for the kids. It kind of is a little icebreaker. It gets them talking, and it starts building the conversation. And it honestly, I also feel like it helps the students justify their thinking too, if you have them put the explanation with it. So it's a nice little thing to expand and to begin your day with, or your lesson with. Okay. Our norms for our sessions, we've had them up here for a while, and you guys just take a moment and refresh yourself with them. Okay. And I would like you to think about one norm tonight that you would like to make it a focus. And if you would make that commitment to yourself to focus on just one in particular, and if you feel comfortable, go ahead and type what your norm is in the chat box. And I can back it up too. Okay, awesome. Awesome, great. Active listening is something I want to focus on too. I do want to take a little detour before we get started. I know the portfolio entries are starting to come in, and thank you guys for all of your awesome diligence in getting those done and the revisions that are being made. I just wanted to put up here examples of captions. This is purely a resource for you guys. So we want to make sure that you start adding in your captions as you go along, so you don't have to make those a last minute thing in case you forgot to do them. John, were we gonna do that tonight, or are we gonna? I thought it was due Saturday, so we were just gonna keep it at the beginning of Saturday.
Yep, it's the 12th. You're correct, Shannon.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, all right, sounds good. So just a quick reminder, if you're joining us this Saturday, we are going to be doing, some of you will be presenting your get to know you activities. Okay, are there any questions on the captions? Okay, awesome. Let's move along. So we should have a relatively quick meeting tonight, because we've done some shifting around with our sessions. So tonight, we are going to be talking about VAD, which is your classroom organization. You are then going to have the opportunity to reevaluate your classroom organization. And then we have a did you know? So fingers crossed that we will get you guys out of here. This will be a short session for our short week of school. So research tells us that classroom organization, where students sit influences their opportunity to learn. So we know that if we put a child in the back of the room or someplace where they're easily distracted, that's probably what's going to happen to them. We want our children, we want our students to be in a place where we can keep close proximity to them. They're away from distractions. And yeah, excuse me. So yes. We also know that visibility and access, students with visibility and access behave better. So what that means is your proximity to your teacher, we can use the technique of going up and standing behind the student and being right there. And that oftentimes changes the way the student is behaving. And then we also know that effective seating charts can vary based upon what type of instruction you're doing. So better managers place students where they can be easily observed and easily reached for instruction and assistance, and can see essential instruction. And this allows students may also, sorry, you guys, students can also, should be able to see everything that's going on around them. There shouldn't be obstructions to any of their visions, whether it be you, or where learning is taking place. So we do this by using VAD, which is visibility, accessibility, and distractibility. So our keys and our guidelines for arranging your room in VAD is to consider these points. Would somebody like to read for us visibility?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
Visibility, ability to see all students at all times. Within this, key for the student and the teacher. Teachers need the ability to see all students at all times. Students must be able to see all instructional areas and displays.
Thank you, Jessica. So that's the visibility component. First thing, it's key for the students and the teachers. The teachers need to be able to see all students. If you can't see a student behind the board, you're not sure what's going on with that student. You have to be able to have that eye contact with all of your students, make sure your room has your flow, and students need to be able to see where that instruction is taking place. Accessibility. Would somebody like to read accessibility for us, please?
I can read it.
Thank you.
Accessibility, movement and immediate response. Key for movement and immediate response, ability to move easily to any student. Teacher and students must have ability to access needed materials easily.
Thanks, Nicole. So accessibility reminds me of one of my former coworkers. They would block off one of their doors with tape, and I never understood why. They were trying to steer students to a particular spot. And when I think of using the VAD technique to evaluate the classroom, it was kind of like the students weren't able to move around easily. It may have been convenient for the teacher, but what about the students learning? So we've got to take all these things into consideration as we evaluate the setup of our classroom. And lastly, we don't want to be tripping over everything too as we go to run to get stuff, which that's me sometimes trying to set up my labs. Okay, distractibility. Would somebody like to read distractibility for us?
I can read it.
Thank you.
Distractibility, need for student attention, key to student attention. Seat students away from obvious distractors. Separate students who constantly interact.
Okay. Yes, the distractibility. So one of the techniques I use for my classroom is the first day of school, I very rarely set up a seating chart anymore. And especially that first week of school, I don't set up a seating chart. And that's because I'm keeping in mind the D, the distractibility. I'm always watching for who my students gravitate towards. Who do they want to sit by? Who are the kids that are like, oh, come sit by me, come sit by me? Because when I do use a seating chart, that's typically the first set of kids I split up. Because those are the kids who tell me that all they want, that they're going to be my talkers, and I want to keep them separated, right? So keep an eye out for those kids who are constantly talking, and so you can split them up. You also, that being said, you also want to keep in mind too, the kids who have the ability to work together, and you want to honor that when there's a successful team. Okay. If you have a student who struggles with their focusing, don't set them right next to the door or where the bathroom passes are. You want them to be able to just concentrate. So far, do you guys have any questions? Because I kind of went through a lot of that fast. No questions? Okay. So next we are going to watch a short little video on a classroom arrangement.
One strategy I use to help encourage cooperative learning is to have the desks grouped in 4. I want to ensure that everybody still can see the front board, so I have no backs facing the board. What else do you notice is similar? I have found that having the students kind of face each other and still have access to the board is important. Where'd this come from? My goodness, I didn't see that before. To help eliminate movement and have students have easy access to any materials or supplies that they need, I've grouped their 4 desks around a workstation placed in the center. And most all of the supplies that students would need are located in the center, so they have easy access, they're not moving around the room, and they can get what they need without interrupting class time.
Yes, yes.
All right. Okay, so I want to just let everybody know that this video was shot 3 months ago. No, I'm just kidding. It was a before COVID video. Thank you. Thanks, John. So COVID really changed a lot of things with how we do our cooperative learning, right? And so I feel like we're able to start getting back to that a little bit. But at the same time, we still have to be extremely cautious, right? We're still wiping down everything in between or having the students wipe it down. So let me get to my. So with that video showed us that we can arrange the rooms, have everything nice and neat. Well, you guys tell me, what did that teacher do? Did she apply the visibility, accessibility, and distractibility techniques? And if so, how? Should we do a close reading strategy on it and watch it again?
I can share something.
Please, Andy. Thank you.
Yes, I like the way that she put materials in the center of each group. I think one of the things I have going on in my class that I need to improve is at different points, if I tell the kids something like, for instance, okay, we need colored pencils. Half the class needs to get up and go to their cubby and get the colored pencils. and or things like that. So I think having it all in one place for each cluster, um, of course that's pre-COVID, but still, I think having the materials handy is the main idea. That was a really good idea she did.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Visibility and accessibility. Visibility by everyone can see the board. Also, supplies were accessible in the middle of their 4-person seating arrangement. Great. Thank you, Jessica. Anybody have anything else to contribute? Okay. So what everybody is going to do now is you are going to reevaluate your own room. So I'd like you guys to think of your own room, and you are going to follow the VAD technique. So let me get this for you. In the chat box, I will have a link for you to the Google Classroom. So you can go ahead and click on that link. And open up your activities for this class. There we go. And I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes to do your evaluation of your room. Let me know if you have troubles opening that. It should open up your own copy.
Hey Shannon, you want to can you bring up what the
Yes,
document
thank
should
you.
look like? Yeah. No
Yeah.
problem.
That's
So just
the
so
thing.
they can see which part they should be looking at.
So we'll go into the classroom. So it should look like this. Thanks, John. So it gives you your, is it making a copy for everybody?
It opens up our own. It opens up our own one.
Perfect. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. So you can go through, there is the recap for you of accessibility, visibility, and distractibility. So I'd like you guys to mentally sit in your student's desk. And then I want you to read the 10 prompts and answer them. Yes, it applies. Sometimes it applies, or no, it doesn't apply. And I'll give you guys 5-10 minutes. When you're done, go ahead and turn it in.
Do we put an X or something?
Yes, you should just be able to type right in there because it's a table and put an X.
Oh, got it.
Shannon, you want me to put a timer on for 5 minutes, and then we can see where everybody's at after that?
That would be great, John. Thank you.
No problem. I got that.
Thank you, Andrea and Kella. Please turn it in when you're done. Yes. Great question, Christine.
Educators, that's you have about 3 minutes left. We could always add more time, but we have about 3 minutes from the additional 5 that we started with. About 1.5 minutes left.
I think we're pretty good. So far, 12 have turned in.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's everybody who's here. Okay, awesome, you guys. Would anybody like to share? Well, who'd like to share some of their ahas from this? Whether it be like, this is like one spot of classroom management I'm pretty rocking at, and it was confirmed tonight. Or, whoa, none of my kids can see the board. That might be explaining some of the problems I'm having.
Well, I'll share. My thing is, I'd like everybody to be in the front row, but that's impossible. So I don't know if you can comment on that or not. You know what I mean, right?
I do.
So before I taught second grade, I had a smart board. Everybody could see it, was interactive. This year I have in like a Elmo. So, kids in the backs, some who wear glasses and stuff. So they find they come up on their own. They sit where they can see it, and that works for them. But it's not ideal. Like I'd like everybody to be in the front row, but I just can't make that happen.
It's kind of like those IEPs where they say preferential seating.
The accommodations, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody has it. And you're like, I don't have enough front row. Educators, how do you guys combat that one?
Can I make a comment?
Please.
Yeah, so with COVID this year, I teach first grade, and my classroom is set up in the most non-traditional way. I usually have groups of 4, but this year they're all in rows. I have like 24 kids in one class, and they have to be socially distanced, their desks. So I have I want to say 5 rows in my room, and they're all facing forward. So this is not the typical school year, and it is hard. I can see the behaviors, but there's not that much I can control this year. Especially my principal told me I had to move the desks even more apart. So I have some kids that are all in the back that can't see, and then for this age, it's kind of not ideal. You know what I mean? So that's a problem. And then I teach with a mic this year. I don't know how many teachers teach with a mic this year. That's weird. But I feel like I'm teaching a college course, and I teach 6 and 7-year-olds. So it's been a battle with the behaviors. I mean, trying to get them under control and trying to get them engaged and get their attention because they're not seated in a way that I would like them to be seated, and just for like for engagement and just for their sociability and stuff like that. So that's a big challenge this year, and that's why answering those questions were kind of hard,
Mhm.
and that's why it's not my choice to have it that way, but we have to do what we have to do to keep everyone safe this year.
So it's thank you, Andrea, for sharing. So are your administrators putting the I'm just curious. Are your administrators putting the restrictions on you?
Yeah, it trickles down
Yeah.
from the state. It trickles down from the state.
So they're like trying to follow CDC or health HID. I don't know where the protocols are coming from, but what we're told is they have to be, at first it was 6 feet apart, now it's 3 feet apart. And to be honest, it's not like I'm measuring with a yardstick like how far each desk is. And having the accessibility, like this year I had to give each kid a bin so that they could put their things in because there's not much movement. Like technically they're not supposed to leave their desk because the less movement, the less contact they'll have. But I mean, they're 6 and 7. If they're gonna get up, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you gotta stay at your seat. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's been a really hard year, and that's just one of the things that's been
Yeah.
hard.
And
So-
John, I think you're right. John just added in the chat that each school probably has different interpretations. And I can say our school definitely falls in that because my classroom kind of looks like what we would call normal, right? There was one point for me where our close contact was happening so fast that I would have days where just one student was there because he was the student absent from the day the close contact happened, right? And so our principal has said, I mean, it is what it is. And he's really given us a lot of leeway to let our kids kind of go back to a little bit of normalcy. And I think there was one point where I was told 15 minutes. I said, well, shoot, I'm just going to set my timer for every 14 minutes and make the kids get up and move. And I laughed when I said it, but they said, okay, because then they're not considered close contact, right? But it's kind of, I mean, it's very frustrating for us because we don't know a lot of this and we're just following the rules that we've been told, and it makes us go against, like, Andrea, like you said, like, this isn't a college class, this is 6-year-olds. And then some of these techniques that we have, like trying to allow, we take our kiddos and we build that cooperative conversation, and then we use our techniques to bring their attention back to us. But right now, their attention it's kind of hard when they're in rows and trying to bring that focus back to you when they're just kind of already staring at you bored, right? I think I used to be that teacher where my desk always had to be in rows. And I couldn't figure out why I was having so many issues. When I finally relaxed that component and let my kids work in pods or changed my seating up to be whatever, that's when I realized I had better classroom management and the kids were then more focused on what I had to say. So it's kind of interesting how it's all playing out, but yeah. Would anybody else like to share?
Yeah, can I share something?
Please.
So my room sounds exactly like what Andrea described. All spread apart and the whole works. I use a microphone as well, and that I would say has been a game changer for me and the rest of my grade level. In fact, I would still use the microphone even after this pandemic is done because it just allows me to not have to strain my voice and everyone can hear, and it's been really helpful. But one thing we do as far as like trying to have everyone sit in the front row, I have a seating chart, but I'll at different points in the year I'll kind of call an audible. Like if I see a certain combination of kids is not working, I'll just move instead of rearranging the whole class. I'll just move 1 or 2 kids to try and solve the problem. Another thing we do is since they're spread apart in the class, to do small group type work, I just have the kids go outside. So we'll just they'll sit in their small groups outside on the sidewalk. And, I guess this is maybe my own interpretation of the COVID protocols, but I figure, well, we're outside, there's the breeze blowing. I mean, it's not as dangerous as being inside. So I let them get closer than they would be indoors. So you guys use a helicopter anyway, but it's we do that a lot. We also take I call it a mask break, and initially it was more for me just because I would get sick and tired of wearing a mask and talking with a mask all day. But so we take frequent breaks, like maybe a 2 or 3 minute break. But what I've noticed is that for the kids having to social distance all this time, that mask break is really it adds that extra like social interaction. So the mask break is we just go outside. I just tell them, it's not recess. Don't run around. Don't get all crazy. But you can talk to each other. If you want to pull your mask off, just stay apart. And I think that has really helped to just give the kids a little bit more feeling like this is a semi-normal year and I can still make friends and talk to my friends and have some interaction besides trying to, stay far apart and not touch each other and all that. So those are, I guess, a couple of the workarounds I've tried to do this year.
So what I've done to address all the kids and to get as many students in that preferential seating or in that front row, I've gotten rid of the front of the room. I don't have a designated front of the room. I teach from wherever in the room, and I'm fortunate where both ends of my rooms have whiteboards on them, and I have 2 screens so that I can be constantly moving around, and then that I use that proximity versus having those students in the front of the room. So I've just eliminated the front of the room. Yeah.
My question to that is, if I'm modeling a lot of activities for my students because they're still young, I need to be situated someplace. So what's your take on that?
So John put something interesting in the chat box, and he's seen schools do circles. John, would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, I think this also goes to spacing and the amount of room you have, but more of where it's almost like you would think of like a Socratic seminar where all the desks are more in a circle and the teacher just teaches from the middle of the circle. So that's kind of your part of the room. So they all basically face that center. And again, depending on how much room, you can still space them out on the sides, and they're not actually facing any other student because all the students are facing you.
Right.
Yeah. So I've seen some work through that. It takes a little creativity, Kellen. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not by no stretch am I saying like, oh, just go do this. It's super easy.
No, but
I'm just saying, there is a possibility. You might even be able to do like and more I'm thinking about it again, depending like an inside outside. So there's a a circle, and then on the outer side is another group of a circle. But again, that also depends on the space and how much furniture you have or don't have. But it's just thinking about different ways. And I only, again, say it just because I've seen it. But I think the hard part is sometimes when we're trying to follow these rules and we're only used to seeing the person across from us or the person next to us, because we're not visiting each other's classrooms right now either, right? You kind of get stuck. You're like, I don't even understand how I'm supposed to do this. And you just have to hear other people like, oh, I can probably try that. It may not work great, but it just gives you options. Because I think right now we're trying to get by so much that we're like our thinking's almost stopped because we're not visiting and seeing other great things. So I think I'm kind of lucky I get to see some of those things. So that's the circle might be a possibility.
Yeah, or even like a horseshoe, right? Like I
Yeah.
get what you're saying, right?
And I would encourage everybody just to try something different. it can flop, and it can be a super success, and it can be anywhere in between, just as long as you try different things. And I'm not asking you to go in and like completely rearrange your room, but just, you know what, freak the kids out one day and just change the direction that your desk is going, or change the spot you stand in the room. And see where you can, see what happens to them, because they will freak out. What are you doing over there? You don't stand over there. Why is your desk moved? What happened? And it's just really interesting. And once you start changing a little something, you might change a little something more, and you might change a little something more. Or you might say, you know what, that was a total flop, but at least you tried something. And so I just encourage everybody just to try doing change one little thing with your room arrangement and see what happens. What else did some of you guys notice from your room arrangements?
I can share.
Okay, thanks, Crystal.
I've been working with a severe functional special education class. And so we have our specific areas for our small group, or what would be our whole group. We also have our little areas where they can work on their individual tasks. One student, I realized the way the corral is facing, it can be blocked from when I'm in certain parts of the room. And I know we originally set it up that way because of the distractions. So I'm wondering if I could just adjust it slightly, so that I can see partial at least and still eliminate the distractions. So it is a little tricky with a special education class, but I think there's ways that it can be adjusted.
That sounds like a great opportunity for you. And a great opportunity for the students, just to give that little thing like, okay, maybe just doing this will change something.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, maybe the student has grown a little bit and maybe they can handle a little more distractions and maybe can focus a little better.
Yeah.
I know we kind of keep things stagnant because it's working, but we eventually want to start to encourage them to be able to adjust eventually to larger groups and more distractions. So I think that's a good opportunity for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Crystal, you just said something that we have a tendency to keep things stagnant because they're working. I know that can be true for myself and my practice, and that's a really powerful statement. And to be able to have that ability to kind of acknowledge that, and then see if we can start moving that a little bit, right? So thank you. That's awesome. Anyone else?
I can share.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, I used to teach 5th grade, and I ended up, before this pre-COVID, I went through Donors Choose and got 2 projects funded for all this amazing flexible seating. So I had standing room in the back, I had couches, I had bouncy balls, I had stools, I had all these things, and every day they got to come in and choose where they could sit. And they were so much more involved in my lessons, and they loved being able to choose what they could do, because they'd never been to a class that had that before. And then with COVID, I had to take all of that away, and so all of that stuff is just sitting on the side. I still use the stools for like small groups if they want to use it, and sometimes I'll pull out the bouncy balls and have one person use it for the day, But yeah, it's just hard with spacing, and I hear you guys seeing like a horseshoe or something like that. I'm like, I wish that could be in my classroom. I run small groups, even though my school says we're probably not allowed to, but I try to say like, oh, they're 3-4 feet apart. But it's just so hard, with COVID, with all the restrictions. My school's like very strict about it. but they have to be so far apart, and they come in, they measure with their meter stick to make sure our kids are that far apart. So we
Your
have to have like
admin does?
yeah. So we have
Oh
to
my
have like tape
gosh.
on the
Wow. ground,
like for each kid, so that's like their designated spot. So it's like very intense. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any suggestions. I would love to change up my room. I'm all about it, but it's just hard.
Wow. I think I would be, I think I'd be too nervous with admin coming in and checking. Well, in your resources, I did include the latest CDC guidelines for setting up your Google Classroom. So that is also there, so you guys can check and see what the CDC says to have for your classrooms. Does anybody have any suggestions for Jessica aside from ask for forgiveness? Try things and then ask for forgiveness if anybody says something.
I have something. So I kind of had like the same situation where I did flexible seating also. And what I did was I give the students now their own like Velcro dots, and then they just take it with them and then put it down, and they can sit like wherever they want. But they have to return to their spot, I guess. And it has to be like, they can't sit next to each other, but they're still allowed to kind of move around in a way. They just have to take their spot with them and then put it down, and then they move by their spot.
Kendra, what's a Velcro dot? Like, is
It's
it like a?
It's like a dot that like sticks to the carpet. And I also have ones that are for like tile. It's more like rubbery.
Are they like 4 inches in diameter? Or are they like 18 inches?
No, they're really tiny. Yeah, maybe like 4 inches.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're
So
called
like the
sit
size of
spots
a hand
on
or so.
Amazon.
I'm sorry.
They're called sit spots on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so each student has one. They have like numbered ones too, and then they just take it with them, and then they can put it down, and that's like their spot for the day.
Oh, I like
But they have
that.
to like, they can't mingle. They still have to stay apart, but they have their area.
But that's
Is
their
that
choice.
with their desk?
No, I mean, they have like their own lap desk, but then they can take their spot and like move it.
So you have prearranged spots that you placed, and then they just move around and stick their end to it, right?
They take their spot, and then they can pick like, oh, I'm gonna sit here today.
And it could be wherever
Yeah.
in the classroom.
Yeah, kind of doing the flexible seating a little bit, but not really, not to the foot. Like I had to get rid of the balls too and the standing room, but it's just something other than the rows.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still have rows, but not. I took some away, and I just said, oh, you guys can have floor seating here.
So is it all floor seating then, Kendra?
There's some desk and some floor.
Okay.
Jessica,
Thank
what
you.
grade do you teach?
This year I teach second grade.
Okay. Because I know for like my students, I would give them a clipboard if they didn't have like their desk to work at, right? If they chose not to sit at a desk, but that might be a little difficult for a second grader.
My kindergartners use like, you know, those it has like those beads, and then it has a flat, like a lap desk, I guess.
Oh yeah,
I got those
mushy on the
ones
bottom
to
and
use.
then
Yeah,
solid
so
on
they
the
take
top.
that with them, and then their supply box.
So Jessica, you could try something like that, you know, take some circles or little squares of paper and have the students write their name and then let them sit wherever for the day.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Thank you, Kendra.
Thanks, Kendra. Okay, anybody else before we move on? There's some great comments in the chat box too. Yeah, taking the kids outdoor and giving them that extra space is, I think, really helpful as well. Okay, so like I said, in your resources, you will have there's one of your resources is an easy guide to set up your elementary classroom. And then the other one is the CDC guidelines of what the latest CDC has said. And I think it was updated January 22nd. With, I think, Omicron starting to ease up, I wouldn't be surprised if CDC makes another revision coming out soon. So that page is actually linked to the CDC page. So every time they update it, our link is automatically updated. Okay, well, that concludes our meeting for this evening. Saturday, we will go over classroom procedures as well as the portfolio requirement for Module 5. So Module 5 or 5.1, sometimes it's called 5A and 5B. You're going to have an or. You can do this or you can do that. So we will go over that on Saturday. And you guys, we're halfway done with this already. So awesome job. I want to give praise to those of you guys who have already turned in your portfolio entries. Awesome. For those of you guys who have already followed John's suggestions and are making your edits, awesome, awesome, awesome. That will really save you time towards the end. And if by chance you're not with us this Saturday, make sure you watch the video because it will have directions on there with how to handle this portfolio entry. So with that, I would like to say,
Shannon, sorry
yes.
to interrupt. I guess Kendra and Christine, if you don't mind sticking online for just a little bit, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So with that, if there's no other questions, you guys all who turned in your assignment got your assignment done for today, and I will return it back to you. So that's done, and that could be used to help you complete your portfolio entry if that's the route you choose to go. All right. So are there any other questions? Yes, please.
Okay, so to repeat what you said, if we've participated tonight but weren't planning on coming in on this Saturday, then this would be our portfolio entry, or do we still need to do the assignment for whatever's happening on Saturday?
So there is yes, I would like you to do the assignment that's happening Saturday, because it's going to give you the opportunity to explore. So tonight we explored our classroom setup using those 10 prompts. And Saturday we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at procedures, and you're going to identify a new procedure you could teach your students, or something that you feel like is in your classroom that that could really benefit from a procedure, something like lining up to get a drink of water before class begins or something like that. So I would like everybody to go through exploring a new procedure. And then after you've done both activities, which tonight's was pretty short, and so the next Saturdays will be pretty short as well. After going through both activities, you will then be better equipped to decide which direction you want to write your entry in. Does that clarify or make it more muddy?
A little more muddy because
no. Thank you for your honesty.
Well, I guess I should wait. I guess what I'm saying is maybe we should wait till Saturday to see what the activities are, and then and then going from there. But if 5.1 is going to have the assignment with the caption on it, then we're obviously going to have to do that one, right?
No. 5.1 and 5 are grouped together.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. This is 5.1 and 5 is Saturday, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I sort of get it. Thank you.
Yeah, so they're two connected it's one entry for 2 sessions. You pick what you want to write about.
Okay, got it. That was
Okay.
super clear. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, sometimes I take a really long way to explain something really simple, so I apologize. All right. My apologies. I thought I got
Hey,
this.
if you refresh, I change it for you.
Thank you. I was like, I thought I had it. I even chuckled because I'm like, that would be really silly if I left it in there.
I got you.
Thanks, John. Okay, so February 12th is our next day, and then there is an optional check-in over spring break, which is March 6th. But I think we have a couple more before that. Yeah, so. Yep. Okay, and then with that, everyone, I have one last would you rather question. And you can go ahead and type your answer in the chat box, or you can turn your mic on and give your answer as we say goodbye. Would you rather never ask another question or give another answer? Never give another answer. Nice. Okay, you guys, go have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you Saturday. Jackie, would you like a breakout room?
It won't take long. I don't think we need it. Well, I'll just kind of wait till the end. Unless you want to put me in one with Christine and Kendra. That would be fine.
Okay, I can.
All right. Thank you. Actually, I don't think you're